Welcome to Local Leverage, your competitive edge in business. As always, today's show is brought to you by Property Radar, the hyperlocal lead generation platform for small local businesses. Today, we're joined by Dominick Felix, an investor, team builder, and the architect behind one of the most dialed-in off-market lead generation systems in the game. What started as a simple house hack has scaled into a full-blown acquisition engine, with systematized outreach, a vertically integrated operations team, and a strategy that consistently lands properties well below market value. In this episode, we break down how it all works, from seller scripts to follow-up cadences, and the non-negotiables for winning in today's market. Dominic is a no-nonsense, system-driven thinker, and in this episode, he's sharing the exact strategies keeping him competitive in 2025. Dominick Felix, welcome to the show. It's great to have you on.
Yeah, thanks for having me, man.
Yeah, I know you work so much with wholesalers, helping people navigate both these interesting market conditions and then also just to optimize how they approach the business and get deals done. So I have a lot of questions for you. I think I'd like to start, or maybe just with, what are you seeing as the major challenges here in 2025? I mean, some are obvious with interest rates, but what else are you seeing, and how are you primarily helping people to navigate these challenges and still find success?
Oh man, it's like, as soon as you think we're going into a recovering market, it gets challenging all over again, right? So I
Yeah,
think
no
the lead
doubt.
sources are super important. I think the way that we handle those leads are super important. I ran a wholesale company prior to the company that I'm with right now, and it was about 30 of us, probably the better part of like 9 or 10 salespeople. So we did a really good amount of transactions. And we just had like one exit strategy that we focused on. It was mainly cash deals and exit to hedge funds. And
Okay.
we rinsed and repeat, and we did a lot of transactions each and every month. And once the market started shifting, it changed all of that. And now I think multiple exit strategies are very important to get the best results out of your marketing costs.
Were you
So
seeing that the hedge funds are pulling back on the number of transactions, or was there just the
wildly,
not?
yes.
Okay, so all of a sudden you need more opportunities besides just that group that you were reliant on.
Yeah, because of the low interest rates, they were able to make financial sense of cash flow at some level. I mean, it's
Sure.
still to people maybe like you, but definitely like me, it really didn't make sense. But for them, it made sense, and we were able to exit lots of deals between 25 and 50 on any given month, just
Okay.
sliding them through the operation directly to the hedge funds. And then once that started changing, it was almost like everything did a complete 180, and it was almost like they completely shut off, at least for a
Wow.
while.
How did that feel when that started drying up? I mean, it had to be a little bit of a panic moment if you were solely looking at that as the exit strategy. And how did you make the pivot?
Man, you feel invincible, like nothing can touch you, and then you feel incredibly vulnerable, like you're starting all over again from scratch.
Scary when you're generating that kind of volume of transactions and not to have somewhere to go. What were the other channels that you started looking at, or what were the other exit strategies?
So we leaned heavily at that point into cold calling because we can control the front end data and we can cross compare. I mean, we had really close relationships with about 10 hedge fund companies, and we were able to pull data in a specific way and cross compare it between all of the hedge funds so that when we acquire the deal, we can acquire it the best way possible and know what the exit's going to be. And if for some reason something changed inside of any one of their buy boxes, we had different opportunities and ways to exit those deals. So I mean, it was like a 90% success rate. And we just got really good at the process, right? So cold calling is tough. You're
Yeah.
closing, or at least then you're closing one out of 40 to 50. So we had 40 virtual assistants and 9 sales guys, and I think half of them, 9 or 10, half of them were junior sales guys, so they'd warm them up a little bit more and then pass it on to the closers. So you get really good at a repetitive process over
Yeah.
and over each and every month, as to where if you chose other lead types, you don't know if you're getting the specific asset type in order to exit correctly inside of the operation. So we
Right.
started with cold calling. This is probably 7 years ago. And then we had it going for about 5.5 years. from when it was really new to wholesaling up into when it was commonplace.
I'm curious. I mean, even preceding the calls, I guess you understand the buy box of your folks. So there's some criteria there around at least the type of property or asset they're looking for. How else were you identifying opportunities to put into your call lists so that you knew they had a high propensity of it being the right sort of a fit for your exit strategy?
Yeah, so we did our best to target motivation, so tired landlords, pre-foreclosures, probates, all of the common lines of motivation that we hear about day in and day out. And then on top of that, it was typically like 1990 build and newer. It had to be at least a 3.2, probably no smaller than 1,000 square feet, no bigger than 2,500 square feet. So all of those characteristics of a property, you know, um, no, never on a main street, like with the double yellow line. So there's a lot of things that we were able to build out to pull the data the right way to set us up for success.
That's great. When you were, I mean, based on that kind of information and knowing the distress situation, um, were your cold calls then tailored? I mean, or were you more of a just, hey, I know this is a list of potentials and we're going to approach them all the same way, or are you tailoring those calls and approaches to tap into maybe the emotional state of that person's unique distress situation?
So that's a really good question because a lot of people, which we were too, put a lot of time into how they're going to do their cold calling, how they're going to build their scripts out, hiring, firing, getting great virtual assistants, doing a lot of it themselves, and so on and so forth. And we spent probably the better part of almost 3 years just trying every variation. And to us, it almost felt like if you're trying to get cold calling off of your plate because it's a low level responsibility and you're trying to get it to someone else, um, you can't expect that person to be great on that call as you would be cold calling. So if you and I, Mark, are cold calling, we might, get more leads in and we might close one out of 20 to 30 instead of one out of 40 to 50 based on the leads that we're getting from the lower level individuals. Um, so what became apparent to us is we can't expect them to be great salespeople on those cold calls. So we decided to make cold calling a responsibility that just gets someone to raise their hand, say
Mm-hmm.
yes, that I'd like an offer, maybe ask very few qualifying questions to see if they'll at least stay on the phone and answer questions, and then as fast as possible get them over to a talented salesperson with a live transfer. And that's the way that we felt it operated best. And it kind of morphed into that over the course of about 3 years. It was almost like, you QC these cold calls and you see they're trying, but in most cases they're not doing the best job. So it's like, let's just get them to say yes, ask them a few questions, get them over to a live salesperson so we can really do a great job on someone that's willing to talk to us.
Yeah. So the live salesperson then is really then doing the probing and the active listening to tailor it to that person's unique situation, but not
Correct. Yeah, we found that just so much opportunity is being lost by putting like, because a lot of people are putting like these sales strategies and, trying to get four pillars and all that
right.
on the front end cold call, but it's such a cold lead approach that it can be a really bad experience if a really great person isn't talking to the right person at the right time.
So I've seen this in a number of industries, but I presume then the other side of this coin is that maybe you're not missing opportunities, but perhaps the seasoned salesperson then may sometimes perceive like, God, I'm getting a bunch of junk leads, or I'm getting a lot of stuff that maybe isn't as warm as I would like it to be. Is that something you experienced?
You do, you do. But a smart salesperson and an eager salesperson and a hungry salesperson should just want to talk to people.
Yeah.
You should want to talk to people. You should be excited that someone's on the phone. And I had, some really great salespeople in the past, and I didn't think of it this way, but one of my salespeople told me that If there's someone on the line willing to talk to you about potentially selling their house, whether they're not quite serious or very serious, whatever the case may be, that and if you're complaining about getting on and talking to that person, you got to be a real piece of garbage, and you're not in the right role.
Definitely not in the right
Because
seat. Yeah.
yeah, I mean, the worst case scenario, you try to qualify the individual, and if they're not qualified, you get off and you move on to the next.
Right.
But the job for us in wholesaling is just talk to a really good amount of people because the times that you do win, we win really big.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think you just kind of touched on it lightly there, but I mean, I think then the salesperson, part of their responsibility is how do I quickly navigate that call and qualify or disqualify, right? So that I can either move on or stay engaged and work this thing through.
Yeah. Now, in this new market, I'm playing a lot closer to the leads. I talk to a lot of people, mainly on the disposition side of the business, and my two other business partners are on the acquisition side of the business. So we're intaking digital marketing leads, Facebook leads, PPC, stuff like that. We do some cold calling as well. Um, but in this new market, we like talking to high quality leads and we like having really long conversations with them.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of reasons for that. One reason is we think if they spend a long time on the phone with us, they're probably not going to want to go through a good long call with another person, or they might not fill out another form and go to another person. So we really want to treat the high quality leads the way they should be treated and try to maximize the opportunity with them. Um, yeah, and then really go through the script the correct way, right? Gather the pillars, rebut the objections, and really take good, high quality care of those leads. Because with that approach, we have a team here, three, four, five, six people. So there's six of us now, and I'm probably gonna net more than what I did with 30.
Interesting. Interesting. How have you seen the shift this year, maybe, or maybe even going back into last year, um, the shift in terms of the types of distress signals? Are you casting a broader net now, looking for different distress items? Are you still staying with those primary ones that you mentioned, kind of non-owner occupied and so forth?
Um, So you still have the sellers that are holding on to the fact that the value is not being adjusted or that the
Yeah,
expectations can
absolutely.
be what they were back in 2021, 2020. But I am seeing a light conversion, almost like an expectation that, yeah, we're at the point where the market is shifting, it is adjusting, and they're willing to come to terms. And it's just up to us to have a great conversation to help them make that conversion, to come to
Yeah.
terms to doing business with us. So I do
How
think that in a market like this, you really have to work hard at your craft to do really, really well.
how are you navigating that? Because I'm hearing the same thing when I talk to realtors as well. Like, they're getting listings now, which is great. They weren't getting listings, now they're getting listings. But I hear very often those folks have, an old view of what the value of the home is. And now that realtor has got to help them kind of recalibrate. And that's often not an easy conversation.
Yep.
You're having to do the same exact thing. What's that flow look like? How do you help convince them that there's a new reality and they're not going to get what maybe they perceived it was worth a year ago or 2 years ago?
I think what's helping us is multiple exit strategies because if you're going in with just deep cash as your exit, you might have a lot less success. You just have to have a really great conversation with the individual, person to person. Don't treat them like you're reading a script to them. Treat them like you're talking to them. You're trying to hear their side. Pull as much information out as you can because obviously everyone's guard is up in the beginning of a conversation. So you have to befriend those individuals, talk to them like people, and try to get as much information as you can to see if, even if they would take a cash offer or that's good for an assignment, maybe they're not able to. Second, I have to shut my phone off.
Oh, no problem.
Sorry about that.
That's all
Okay.
right.
Even if they could take a, or they would take a cash offer, maybe they're not even able to because they don't have enough equity or enough spread in the deal. So you just have to have those conversations, see what's a good fit. In most all cases, we mention what the cash offer is or what it would have been, and then we might convert and go in a different direction to talk about a different solution. So for us, The multiple exit strategy process is it's either cash or novation or creative.
Got it. Got it. Yeah, that gives you a lot more opportunity to pivot or come up with creative ways to navigate that
Yeah.
conversation.
And then you can't always give all of those options because now you're reading a Cheesecake Factory menu to them, right? And then if you give someone too many options, they're very likely to not take any of them, right? They're going to be so confused and then they want to end the call and they want to think about it. So they may choose the best one or at least give two because sometimes when you give two options, they feel opt or they feel apt to want to take one of them.
Yep. Yep. No, I love that you just called out. I mean, a confused mind doesn't buy or doesn't close, right? And so,
Correct.
yeah, I think that's really good to bake it down, but still give them two options. I think that's really,
Yeah, we're here to solve problems, not create more problems and more confusion.
yeah. How much does how much does empathy play in kind of the way you approach folks? I mean, it sounds like you use some, scripting, and you're very systematic or scientific about how you're approaching the whole funnel. Um, how much latitude in the script, or maybe even built into the script, does empathy play in trying to, you know, get on the side of what that person's going through emotionally?
Well, I think a tremendous amount. Yeah, I do talk about a script because I do think that we have to have a process that we go through that we memorize. But a script is only as good as the paper that it's written on, right? You have to be able to navigate in and out of the script based on how the conversation is going. So if I'm going through a scripted process, but I'm saying it to you like I'm naturally having a conversation, like you barely even know that it is a script, but then they start talking about their house or their situation, then you do have to branch off and just talk about that situation, care about the situation. Perhaps you spend way more time talking about that situation than you are in the script, but maybe at some point find a creative way to get it back to where you left off in the script to go through that process. Because at the end of the day, we have our own company. It's a professional company. We do a lot of business. We have to be perceived that way. So it's almost like I'm a regular Joe. I care about you. I want to have that friend to friend conversation, but you are also dealing with a company that it's as high as a level as an open door or an offer pad so that they know, all right, this guy's a regular guy. I feel good talking to him, but I have the protection because they're
Right.
a
They're
really
real.
credible company.
Yeah. Yeah. That's a nice blending. So, Dominic, one of the things that we're all about is kind of sharing the secret sauce, helping people to really understand tactically, how they can learn from you and implement strategies to help them. Can you give us a little bit of a glimpse into that script framework, and not the words per se, but just kind of better understanding what that framework looks like? What are you trying to get out of it? What are the primary objectives of that sales call?
Yeah, so what you've probably heard a lot, and what a lot of the listeners have probably heard a lot is, you want to try to figure out what the main four pillars of the person's situation is, right? And the main four pillars are, at some point, you want to figure out if they have a price expectation for the property. You want to figure out if they have a specific timeline that they're working with. Do they have to sell in a few days or do they have a few months, right? You want to figure out the condition of the property. So what did we say? We said price, we said timeline, we said condition, and then also the last one is motivation, right? What's the real reason behind everything, right? Sometimes it's pre-foreclosure, sometimes they have to move across two states to go live with their son. Sometimes it's a inherited property and they really have no desire to own an extra property. So if you can find out all four pillars, or at least three out of the four, then you're in a good spot.
Yeah. Are there any of those that are immediate red flags, or maybe conversely, are there things in those four pillars that are big green flags?
One of the most clear ones that most people have heard a lot is when they don't want to contribute a price and they're looking for a number to make them move, right? So I don't know if you've ever gone on, and I don't even know if Zillow has it on their website anymore, but um, they used to, oh, this I think is when they used to give cash offers. Um, or I'm trying to remember what it was, but there used to be like a make me move button or something along those lines, which means like I'm not really gonna sell, but if you give me the right number, maybe I
Yeah.
can sell, right?
Yeah.
And normally that means they want at or above retail.
Yeah. Yeah.
And there's no room for anyone to make any monies or for anyone to solve any problems when it's a scenario like that.
Is that a showstopper if there's that misalignment, so long as the motivation on the other side still feels high? I mean, or is that one where you just like, nope, we're not in alignment, cut line and move on?
I mean, if they actually will sell, there's other things that we can look at. So a lot of times when it's a scenario like that, where they really just need to be at a very high number at retail, sometimes we can talk about creative options, like subject to. Right. So subject to is when we're essentially taking over their mortgage and assuming the payments and exchanging the deed. Right. So it's a little bit creative where, maybe we can give them a little bit of money. It's normally not much can be fit because if an end user or an investor is going to take over that subject to, if we're actually going to buy it and wrap it and resell it to a homeowner or something along those lines, there has to be some room for some kind of acquisition fee for it all to make sense. Because when we work these leads and we take these leads all the way to close, by the time we close and exit that deal, I mean, the cost per deal it always ranges between like 3,000 and 4,500 bucks. So like there's a cost to acquire these deals and to automatically exit these deals. So we have to build a profit on top of that. And then we have overhead. We have an office, we have a
Sure.
team,
Yeah.
we have a bunch of different costs. And a lot of times throughout that journey of acquiring it, selling it, throughout that journey, we're solving different problems. It might be cleanouts, it might be getting squatters out of houses, like all different types of scenarios come up that cost money.
Do you have a specific target for your cost of acquisition, like for the lead and for the all of your sales inputs and you I mean, you could boil it down to, I guess, kind of a return on your ad spend, but I'm curious if you look at it more holistically or how you look at what pencils and what doesn't.
Yeah, yeah. So we probably should have a tighter grip on the numbers. We take light looks at them. So the range of 3,000 to 4,500 cost per deal, and then the average assignment of 27 to 33,000. So
Okay.
we're always in that type of range.
Okay. Yeah, I get that ratio and is that, I'm assuming that that's an all-in cost, that
Yeah, that's
4,000.
an
Okay.
well, that's an all-in cost from marketing and cost to get the deal done, but not including overhead for the
Okay.
team.
Okay.
So when we go over our books with the accountant, we're about a 56% profitable operation.
Okay. Yeah. So that okay. Yeah. So you got maybe a quarter to a third in the acquisition of that lead, and then some operating overhead on top of it. Yeah.
Yep, yep, yep.
Cool. Cool. Um, I'm curious. Yeah, well, I don't know that everybody can read your shirt, but you got "all leads suck" on your shirt, and I know that's maybe a nod to the challenges that investors in general or real estate professionals have in sourcing and generating leads. And why do you think that it's so difficult for folks? I mean, obviously, this is where everything starts. You can't negotiate and you can't dispose of deals or exit deals if you don't find them to begin with. But people struggle with it. It just seems like I don't know. It just seems like the thing that most people have the hardest time succeeding in.
Well, I think a lot of people are excited about what can become, right? They're excited about getting into wholesale. They're excited about getting the results, the ten to $20,000 per deal. Um, but when it boils down to like what it takes to get those results, a lot of times they're not really expecting all of the work that it takes going into it. So what tends to happen is the people that don't really succeed, a lot of times will blame it on the leads, right? So all leads suck for me is more of a play on words, right? And it really means to us like people will categorize their leads. They're like, I got cold leads, I got warm leads, I got hot leads. They'll put them into buckets,
Right.
right? So we like to wipe those buckets out, and we have one bucket, and it's just called lead, right? And it's not about the lead sucking, it's about how good are you prepared to be at your craft, right? If it's your job to get on and talk to these people and have really, really great conversations, then you have to decide whether, you suck or not, and don't blame it on the leads.
I love that. Love that framing. I don't know if it always makes me think of kind of the Glengarry leads from Glengarry Glen Ross, where they have these
Right.
special
And
leads
it's
that are
funny, even in
coveted.
that movie, like when the fire was lit, they started to perform
Yeah,
more.
absolutely. Yeah. Well, I think it exactly on your point, right? Is how you handle that lead. Do you dig in and are you a good listener and can you help navigate that person's situation, or do you just blame the lead source or blame the quality of the lead for your own inadequacy as a salesperson?
Exactly, exactly. I mean, and it sounds cliche, and a lot of people talk about it this way, but it's almost like, how hard are you working at your craft? Are you talking to people every day? Are you practicing your script? Are you going to trainings? Do you have a coach? Because even with sports team players, right? They getting coached every single day. They're going to practice several times a week in addition to playing their games until their career is
Right.
completely done. They don't take time off. I mean, they take time off between seasons, but they don't stop practicing.
How do you apply that in practice? I mean, are you with your team, do you allocate a certain number of hours a week or day to practice and to continuing to sharpen the saw?
Yeah, half hour every morning.
Awesome.
Yep. So a lot of it is it's either pipeline reviews, it's KPI reviews, it's practicing the script, challenging each other with objections and rebuttals every single day.
And so does that last part of that, does that look like role play or is that an individual review? How does that work?
Yeah, so a couple things that we do is we listen to call. We also role play, and then we'll also exchange leads. So if someone's having a tough time with the lead, we'll give someone else a crack at it and listen to how they perform the call and
That's
see what
cool.
they did different and if we got through to it. Now, we have a really strong elite team. So most of the times in those instances, it doesn't do much, but once in a while it works. And if it means even getting a few more deals a year, it's well worth it.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. Do you find that that even these seasoned players um, are they eager to do this exercise and review, or are they did folks get into this mindset of, man, I've been doing this for 25 years. I just let me get on the phone.
I think it depends on the company, right? Because if you have a company that has that kind of demeanor or that kind of ambiance of this is what you're here for and this is what we're going to do every day, and then the leaders and the owners are consistent with that push, the people that perform really well want to participate. And the ones that don't, they normally don't last. So there's a lot of corporations, really good companies that I've seen out there that keep that going consistently. And then there are those that phase in and out that you've seen for years, and then for some reason they've disappeared. And it's probably because they couldn't keep it consistent for a long period of time.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. And I saw a video of yours the other day where you were engaged with a deal. I think you're actually working with an agent, it seemed like, and they were representing, their seller, and you went through like this series of days that turned into weeks where the deal kept changing, the price kept changing. How long do you stay in a deal? What's your cadence of follow up look like, and when do you finally say enough is enough and we're going to push back from the table on this?
So with the system that we use, we have when a lead comes in, it goes into a new lead stage. We don't stop calling them until we reach them. And if for some reason, so what we like to do is, and I don't know if you've ever heard it, but this is something I've never seen written down, I've never seen in the training, but I've heard it from time to time in real estate, something called the 10 days of hell. It's where, like, when a lead comes in, you spend 10 days in a row rigorously trying to contact that lead because the older it gets, the less likely you are to do business with that individual. So we like to do that in our new lead stage manually, and then we have AI follow-up stages in our system. So we'll give it then on to the AI to try to contact it for 10 days after us. So it has its own 10 days of hell, and it'll text and it'll try making phone calls to talk to the individual to follow up with that individual. So we have our new lead stage, we have the AI follow-up stage, and then after that, it'll go to a dead bucket, and the dead bucket lets it rest for about 30 days, and then it starts its own cadence of phone calls and text message follow-ups. So until they say stop, we don't stop following up.
Yeah. Hmm. That's a great takeaway in itself. I think one of the things I hear is most consistently is, people will try for a little bit and then they just give up. And whether it be your cold calling or other outreach strategies, I think half the battle is remaining consistent, remaining committed to doing it until there's some indication to stop, right?
Yeah, I think it's important to know what to expect too, especially for new individuals. If you know like the right way to work a lead is maybe call 2 or 3 times a day along with texting for 10 days in a row and try to work hard to get that individual on the line and then have follow-up sequences and cadences, you'll experience a lot more success. But if you're not exposed to that and you haven't educated yourself on the right script and the right processes to go through, and you're just going to randomly try to call once or twice and think they never pick up or whatever the case may be, then you might fail a little bit more frequently than someone that's rigorous with it. Because what we have to understand is, especially in wholesaling real estate, is that in a lot of cases these individuals are motivated sellers. They're in distressed situations, right?
Right.
So when you call them, you're not the only one calling them. You have creditors that are calling them. They might be behind in their mortgage, car insurance, whatever the case may be. They could be getting tens or hundreds of phone calls a
Yep.
day. And then on top of that, if they filled out more than one form, or people are cold calling them because they're motivated and they're on some list, they're getting lots of calls. They don't even know that it's you that called them from the form that they filled out.
Right.
So you just have to do your best tactful job to call with intent. And there's a lot of good ways to do that to get people on the line.
I think that's another great call out, and being aware of that person's situation, that their distress situation, and their mindset, because there's all these different channels. You could be cold calling or sending texts or door knocking or mail or whatever you're doing, but recognizing the state that they're in. If they're dodging creditors, they may not be super excited to go open the door, right?
Yep.
Or they might, or the phone call, they might be scared to death of yet another collection phone call, right? So, um, you know, thinking about that and then framing your strategy for approaching them, I think is really critical.
Oh yeah, yeah, 100%. And a couple of tips if people aren't using these strategies, sometimes like so when a new lead comes in, our system automatically texts them and says, I'm going to call you in the next few minutes from this number,
Mm-hmm.
right? And then if it comes in overnight, because sometimes people are just up and it could be 2 in the morning and they're in their sorrows and they're like, you know what, I have to make this change and I have to go ahead and sell the home and they fill the form out, they'll get an automated text that says, I'm going to call you a little after 9 a.m. in the morning from this number, right?
That's
So
super
those
smart.
automations prep them for the call. And then when they call in, they see the number, they know what to expect, right? Times other than that, you may have to get a little bit uncomfortable and double dial or triple
Yeah.
dial, right? Because sometimes when you're being called once, people are just avoiding calls all day, so they're used to avoiding a call. But when they get a call 2 times in a row from the same number, they think it's something important. Even maybe something as severe as like, oh, it could be my kid's school. Something's going on. Someone's calling me 2 times in a row for a reason. And a lot of times that can work. So
Yeah.
maybe 25 to 50% of the time, especially on new leads, that can help us get people on the line.
Yeah. I particularly like that SMS before the call. That I think that's a really smart move.
Yeah, it helps.
You mentioned kind of the AI callers or AI dialing as a kind of a secondary. What does that look like in terms of compliance these days? How are you navigating that side of it?
I think if you just do it all correctly and legitimately, I think you should be fine because most of the marketing companies have it pre-built into the terms that people have to accept when they're filling forms out that they may be called back by an AI agent. So if
So you're
you're,
not doing it fully cold. You're doing it after some engagement on their side, whether it be filling out a form or something else.
yeah, for all of the digital marketing leads, yes, and all of the terms and conditions on the forms they fill out for our company, yes, it all gives the in the terms that they're agreeing to that. Yeah.
That makes
And
sense.
from the ones that we've looked into that we didn't even sign up for, a lot have adapted to that and have incorporated in their terms. So it's almost like the world is ready
Right.
for that.
Yep. Yeah, I'm seeing that even on like direct mailers where people use a QR code. The fact that you're scanning that code is
Mm,
kind of obligating you to some open communications, right? Some acceptance
yeah,
of communication. So there's some
right, right, right.
crafty ways to address that.
Yeah,
Yeah,
for sure.
that's great. Um, Dominic, I want to kind of land the plane here, but I want to, before we do, I'd like to just, as you're looking at wholesalers or just investors in the remainder of 2025, like what's the biggest recommendation you can give folks to find success despite the challenges that are in front of us?
I think it's the recommendation that I'm going to say. It's just old fashioned. Um, I just think people have to do a lot of phone calls in any given
Do the
week.
work.
Yeah, we engage with a lot of meetups. We do a lot of Zoom trainings and stuff like that. And anytime we talk to people, it's like, they're doing a few phone calls a day, maybe up to 10 or 20. Well, I'm like, you might have to do 1 to 200. You might have to do 1 to 200 calls a day in order to get some really good conversations. The target should be about 20. Like, and this is if you're just doing acquisition sales, right? Over 100 calls a day, you should be targeting for 20 conversations, and then maybe inside of a month you can get 4 agreements, which would be amazing.
Yep,
Think
absolutely.
about how those can result. I mean, if your average wholesale fee is 10 to 20,000 bucks, you can make a shit ton of money.
Yep, yep. Well, I love the fact that you went back to kind of the old school. I think that um, the tried and true, the blocking and tackling is often the best approach versus, there's so many new shiny objects and things to chase and try that it lures people in and oftentimes they're ineffective. Going back to just do the activity, make the calls. I think that's
Yeah, I think
great
it's
advice.
ultra important. I mean, we want the tools that are going to make our lives easier, and I don't think we should veer away from them. But at the end of the day, even as the owners of the companies, um, we're still keeping it old school, and it's been performing the best, right? So if you could do 100 calls a day and have a bunch of conversations, and then when you get those individuals on the call, have a long conversation, it's just that simple in a lot of cases. Um, if you have a sales script, that's amazing. Just choose something that works well for you, and as long as it matches you and you're comfortable with it, it'll come off a lot better. So those are the couple things that I think are still super important even in this day and age.
That's great. Dominic, thanks for getting tactical and sharing the sauce with the audience. If you found value in this conversation, make sure you hit subscribe or share this with a friend or colleague that can also get some value from it. And Dominic, thanks for joining Local Leverage.
Yeah, thanks for having me on, Mark. Appreciate it.